Hi everyone, Marla Miller from marlamiller.com, offering a new segment to the website called Marla Speak. What is it? Well, every now and then a writer will ask me a question that I think has tutorial applicability to all of us. And when that happens, I will video a Marla Speak. It will be short and sweet, only my opinion, but you know, I've been around the block a few times in the publishing world, and so for what it's worth, this Marla Speak is directed to the Quick Query Critique number 14. That author wrote a memoir called KIDJACKED, and he apparently had shopped it at an East Coast writers conference recently where there were two senior editors of big houses, both requesting I think the first 50 pages. Yeah. So he also wanted to then pitch his query letter, and he found me and sent a letter, and I was quite impressed. It was very well crafted. It's on the site under Quick Query Critiques number 14. So if you want to pull that up as I'm speaking, please feel free. So I'm going to give just a little bit of advice because he's wondering. Both of these editors have had 50 pages of this manuscript for a month, and there's been no response. Meanwhile, he also pitched it to about 12 literary agents, and he developed that list, doing what authors should, you know, going to acknowledgement pages of memoirs, going on websites of literary agencies and finding out who likes memoirs. All good. But he hasn't heard from anybody at this point, and you can imagine that if you go to a writers conference and two senior editors ask you for the first 50 pages and a month lapses before you hear anything or you don't hear anything, you begin to wonder, because remember that our egos are about this big. So he said to me, what do you think? Well, here's what I think. Actually, it's happened to me a couple of times, and it's happened to just about every professional writer that I know. Agents and editors get real excited, you know, and they want the project because they don't want anyone else to have it. So they tell you, please send it to me. And, you know, from our point of view, those are sweet words. So you do, and then you're expecting, like, in 10 minutes after they read it, that they're going to call you and say, of course, we have to do this book. And when they don't, you know, again, we fall back into our default position, which is having an ego about this big. And so he might have even contacted me when his ego was feeling pretty poorly and said, what do you think? Well, here's a couple of things that happens when editors take your work. One of them is that they now have 50 pages of your work, and in that amount of writing, they can tell whether you have the writing chops, frankly, to be able to execute an entire story that's, you know, anywhere from 250 to 350 pages. Because this author is not a professional writer, it could be that they read it and thought, like this concept, but not crazy about the delivery. So what do editors do? Do they just then write you rejection letters and say, sorry, we don't want it? No. If they think that it is a viable project, if they like the subject, and KIDJACKED, this memoir, pretty compelling. I was quite impressed. So they might be then conferring with their independent editors that they have access to. What's an independent editor? Usually it's either a former editor of the house or it's an author that editor happened to work with, and you know, is an author who looks for freelance work, and so they get on the list. It's very, very common. And so these editors then might take the project to one of these indie editors and say, what do you think? So they might be waiting for that. So that might be one of the reasons why they haven't contacted this author. Another is that it takes time to do research to find out what the other houses are publishing in the next publishing cycle. They know, but we don't know. This happened to me a couple of years back with a project that St. Martin's wanted, but then said to me, it's going to have to shift because another big house is putting out a book that is similar. And we can't have two of this kind in the publishing pipeline at the same time. Why? Because sales from one are going to take away from sales from the other, maybe. That's their rationale. Remember, this is a business, and business is about bottom line. And bottom line is making money, not losing money. So one of those two things could be happening with the editors. Why haven't the agents called him up and said, we want this project? I don't know about that either. But what I would do is I would pick the 3 or 4 agents that he would love to have rep him, and I would send them query letters or call them for sure to see, what's the update. Give me the update on what your thoughts are about this query letter, because I'd love for you to see more. In terms of the editor, I would call those editors. I didn't mention that before, but I would definitely call them. I probably wouldn't email them. I would call them because he's met them. He's on a first name basis with them, so I would definitely follow up if he hasn't. He didn't mention that he did call them. Meanwhile, this author is doing the right thing because he is building his platform. He is looking for speaking engagements at fathers groups and looking for websites that are might be sympathetic to his experience. He mentioned in his email to me that he was specifically developing a platform around fathers groups, and I would encourage him to broaden that because this is a parent issue. When I read this, Kid Jacked, I'm a mother, not a father, and boy, it got to me, and I'm sure that it would get to lots of other women. So I would encourage this author to not exclude us, because not only are we half of the population, but we buy about 68% of all books. So I hope that that's helpful. If you have a Marla Speak issue that you would like me to speak about through the website, then please send me an email and we'll discuss it. And if I think that it has applicability to all, I definitely will. Until the next time, I hope you're enjoying marlamiller.com and tell your friends.